Hey everyone, and welcome to Previously in the Multiverse. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Connor.
Yeah, you sounded far too smug saying that intro. I don't like it.
Oh, I'm putting the accent on it so it sounds like Previously in the Multiverse.
It sounds smug.
It says smug. It's an intro to a show. It's fine. It's lively. It's got a bit of pizzazz.
I need like 10% less pizzazz to sound not smug.
Maybe smug's the direction it should take anyway. Maybe all good presenters are a little bit smug.
Oh god, you're gonna be so smug next time.
I'm right, I am. This is our sister DC Comics podcast to our main show, which is Comics from the Multiverse, where we review the weekly DC comic books with Matt. But this is us doing some older DC comics. We're working through some old runs. Worth mentioning that the sixth slot, as it were, the Patreon voted for slot, the vote will be up in the next day or so for patrons. In fact, by the time this goes up, it may already be up, actually.
Would you like to remind them what the options are?
Put me on the spot here. Superman Red Sun, Superman Secret Identity, Superman Emperor Joker, and Superman American Alien. Nailed it.
Well done.
Nailed it. So $5 and up patrons, MailFuzz, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, get to vote in that. That vote will be either already up or it'll be up basically right after this is. So go and look for that. But of course we are working through 5 other runs or slots as we're calling them. So today on this show, on episode 2 of this show, which is every other week, by the way, just for the record. Just in case you were wondering, where's the episode last week? Why was there no episode?
The third podcast is coming soon, and that'll fill that other week.
Yes. So this is going to alternate with a non-DC comic show once I'm caught up in enough books to actually talk about them. So soon.
Keeps pushing how soon, though?
What? By sometime spring. So coming up today, we have Batman 402, which is the first issue from the Batman Second Chances trade paperback, just in case if you're reading it through the trades, rather than just off DC Universe. So obviously we're swapping between Batman and Detective because we're doing Batman Post-Crisis, and eventually there might be other books added in, and eventually they might even do 2 of these a week just because they'll have so many to work through. But right now, just swapping between Batman and Detective. So Detective was last episode. This is Batman 402. We have Wonder Woman issue 2 from New 52. We got the Flash Annual number 4 from Mark Waid's run. We have Showcase 96 issue 3, which is the next issue in our Birds of Prey slot. And then we have GSA issue 1. Last episode we had like Secret Fails and Origins. There was like a one shot that came before issue 1, and this is issue 1 this episode. So that is the 5 books we're going to be talking about on this show. So, and I know some people are reading along. Some people have been making a point of reading with us. So that's cool.
Some clarification if anyone's reading the single issues on DC Universe, the way I am for some of these.
Mm-hmm.
The Showcase 96, it's only the first half that we're going to be talking about.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, there's like I think it's Dead Man that it goes into after.
Yeah, because the length is actually about a regular issue size, actually. So I guess there was just like a 40-page or so.
Yeah, because I went to read it and went, oh god, it's another long one. And then got halfway through and went, wait, we're doing a Dead Man story? Oh, cool, I'm good.
I didn't even realize there was another half to it. Obviously, I was reading it in the trade, which obviously just has the relevant half. So okay, so we're doing half a Showcase 96 issue 3, but it was actually a good 20 pages though, so it was full issue.
Yeah, it's still a normal issue.
So we'll start off with Batman 402. Max Allan Collins writing this with Jim Starlin on art. I was Jim Starlin. That's a name I recognize. So
it's a good start.
Yeah, so that's cool. So the creator of Thanos is involved
amongst many other things.
Yes, involved in this Batman issue. So obviously, switching between Detective and Batman, we're going to get different writers and different styles of story. And let's jump into this one, and it starts off with a pretty cool looking page actually of just the silhouette of the city, with Batman up in this sort of spire, the cape sort of flowing off, and
the stupidly long cape, in the best possible way.
We'll talk about stupidly long in a minute. With the ears. The ears are ridiculous.
I love it.
I mean, I like long ears. I hate the short ones that he has right now, but these are maybe just a bit too long for my taste.
Obnoxiously long to the point where I go around from, these are too long, back to, oh my god, I love these things.
These look like This is what you're supposed to hold on to if you're riding on his back. That's how big they are.
I'm imagining him like headbutting someone and just gouging them with those things.
So yeah, Starlin's art's pretty good. I don't know how much Starlin art I've seen before, but I was actually pretty into it.
Yeah, a lot of silhouette and stuff that he does, isn't there?
A lot of silhouettes. I think the facial expressions are really good. It starts with this scene of these two muggers attacking this couple, and Batman swoops in. And so this is the thing. So I don't know what we're in for with some of these issues, right? Because I've not read them before. And Batman snaps this guy's neck, and he even says, I'm going to break your neck, and he snaps
it's like,
it.
Just broke his neck is all, and you're like,
yeah,
what the hell's going on?
And I'm like, whoa, is this one of these weird periods in comics where Batman was a complete psychopath, and that's it? But however, the very next page, he goes back to his lair, notably not the Batcave, and he takes off his cowl, and it's a blonde-haired dude. And I'm like, it's an imposter. And the rest of this issue is largely about, obviously, the police are hunting Batman thinking he's a serial killer now, and obviously the real Batman is going to try and step in, and he has to try and tell Jason why it's bad that this guy's doing this, because Jason's a little shit and thinks, let's just kill everyone.
Which did confirm Jason.
Yep, did confirm Jason, yep. So... because we were confused last issue if Jason was already around or not, but obviously clearly he was. So first of all, can we send this issue to Zack Snyder? This issue is 30 plus years old, and it gets that Batman shouldn't kill. And what I like about it is it's not even like cookie cutter either. At one point, Batman in this issue says to Jason, he admits that he's also kind of glad that these muggers are dead, like because they're not just muggers. It was worth pointing that out as well. We find out they've got a history of murder and stuff. But he admits that on a fundamental level, I'm kind of happy they're off the streets. Like it's not that I don't have that kind of temptation. That's kind of always been the point with Batman not killing people, is that it would be too easy, that he could cross that line because he understands why it's appealing.
And I think what I actually really like here is the distinction he makes between killing and murder. He's like, no, because Jason's like, well, you've killed people before, and he's like, yeah, in self-defense when there was literally no other choice, I have killed people.
Yeah, which I've always said I don't have a problem with that. If the situation, no, don't get me wrong. I think the movies seem to write him into those positions too often. Like I feel
really easily. Yeah,
I feel like every movie he's been in, like even the Nolan ones, which I love, like put him in this position where someone has to be let die or whatever. And I don't have a problem with that as something that happens once in a while. It makes sense. It's just like someone on the police force. Like every so often, it has to happen.
They're not supposed to kill people, but occasionally there are reasons why. Yeah, they have.
And obviously, yes, there's an issue that they're doing it too often. But that's a whole.
That is a lack of training. Clearly, they could have used this speech from Batman.
Yes. So I'm referring to American police there for the record. British police are actually pretty good about not killing people. For the most part.
Rare.
Yeah. So we stick with this fake Batman for a while. The police lure him in with the bat signal, and why the fake Batman's answering the bat signal is actually a good question.
Well, I mean, I think it's answered as it goes on.
He's delusional.
Over the course of the issue, he believes he is Batman.
Sure,
he's not just kind of pretending and dressing up. He's like, he thinks he is Batman.
And for the record, these long bat ears aren't just the fake Batman. Real Batman's they're identical. He looks the same.
Yeah. I love him when like that first page where he shows up in silhouette with the muggers. Like that page, I love the long ears there. Like it works so well because of that, and it's something I saw someone recently say. It might have been Tynan in his newsletter or on Twitter in his Q&A talking about. Someone asked him, Batman, short ears or long ears, and he kind of brought up a point of, well, long ears are great because you if you go too long, it's still very clearly Batman. It never gets to a point where you can't tell it's Batman unless you go ridiculous. Whereas ears, you can get to a point where it's short enough that if just by the silhouette, you're not necessarily certain.
It's Catman.
Well, it could be, yeah. I think is the point. If they're short enough, I mean, who knows? So and then I saw this with the silhouette, and I was like, I really appreciate that point now.
Yeah. So the news press are all like saying, Batman's a murderer now, and the real Batman's with Gordon, and Batman's like, hey Gordon, now go along with the witch hunt. Don't pretend to be aligning yourself with me, and that way you can give me some information, and we'll figure out who this imposter is. And one of the things I actually like, this issue is actually a little bit deeper. I mean, given what we've already talked about his stance on killing and murder and his speech that he gives to Jason, but also the idea that he runs into like a civilian at one point who just assumes the civilian thinks Batman has been killing people, and he says, "Oh, don't worry, Batman, I won't turn you in. I think it's good that you're killing those bastards. They deserve what's coming to them." And it's this kind of awkward little tense moment for Batman where he's kind of disappointed that someone says that to him.
Yeah.
And I actually kind of like that. There was layers there, and that was kind of good. So, but yeah, Jason's a little shit. Jason's the worst.
I'm shocked.
Jason's like, no, we should be helping this guy. It's like, nah, Jason, calm down. What are you doing? So yeah, and it turns out this guy, like, he's going after all these people who were let off in technicalities as we go through the issue. Batman he gets information from Gordon. He's in one of his disguises, which Gordon realizes actually. Gordon knows that it's Batman in the disguise. There's that great moment at the end where the clothes are left on the alleyway and like Batman's the silhouette or the shadow is just on the ground, walking away from him. There's a neat touch.
I do like that.
He goes. The security guard he talks to, and then he goes to where the guy lives with his mother, and the mother like actually thinks it's her son because she's like, "Oh, you've been sneaking out as Batman every night. Come on, come back to me, my son." Like, really, really, really weird. But no, good. And he finds that he's got like all these newspaper clippings of all these like crimes and murders, and obviously this is what he's been going after. But yeah, so it's a decent enough time. I think the main plot.
Yeah, we get a nice tussle where fake Batman has like thrown someone out the window, and then real Batman saves him. He's like, "Why did you drop me if you were just going to save me?" He's like, "Shut up, saving your life is the most disgusting thing I've done in a long time." Yeah,
it's this murderer who's going to get a deal, so he's under like police protection, and fake Batman throws him out the window, and Batman swoops in. Which again, really nice sequence in terms of the art. I thought the him falling and Batman swooping in front of the beam of light, and all of it looked really good. It flowed really well. I really enjoyed the detective issue last week. It was a nice, fun, goofy little time. I think this is definitely the superior of the two.
I like the last one well enough, but I don't think it's even close between them. Personally.
Yeah, this one's definitely a much more in-depth issue it's got some moral things going on. It's got some Batman character stuff. It's even got some Jason character stuff. The action flows really well. It's probably it's a better drawn issue, even though sometimes I think the ears are a little bit too far forward, so it looks even weirder that they're so long.
Yeah.
That is my one complaint about this. But no, I dig it. We also find out as well actually that so this guy, this fake Batman, he lost his like wife and daughter to a murder or whatever.
I think presumably someone who got on a technicality.
Yeah, and he called his daughter Robin. That was one of the things we heard about. He always liked Batman because he called his daughter Robin. So that was always a thing. So Batman knocks him out at the end. He's like, "Hey, okay, there we go." Like that's like dealt with. That said, even though that's the end of the issue, the cover for the next one makes it look like this guy's still going to be around because the blonde-haired dude still holding like a bat cowl in the next issue cover. So I feel like we're not done with this guy's story.
Yeah, that's true. Because then we've only got this next issue, and then we're on to year one. So it's kind of a interesting two-parter in some ways.
Yeah, I'm kind of into that. But yeah, and Batman sticks around and says, "Nah, I need to clear my name and hand in this fake Batman, so everyone knows it's not me." So yeah, I really enjoyed this issue. Batman 402 was a little winner.
I agree, and it ends on that big existential question of Batman going, "After all, who am I but just another guy who thinks he's Batman?" I'm like, yeah, okay, this is working for me.
Yeah, no, I like this issue quite a bit. Obviously, I mean, I've read year one a few times, so once we get to 404,
it's more familiar ground.
Yeah, we're in familiar territory. Once we get past year one, it's going to be unfamiliar for a long time. Yeah,
probably until like Death in the Family.
I've not even read that.
Oh, have you not?
No, I've not read Death in the Family.
Okay, I've read that.
The earliest thing I've read might be Nightfall. In terms of this era, I've read stuff in the 70s and stuff, but like after year one, the first thing after that might be Nightfall. Might be.
Okay. I mean, I think it's just year one, Death in the Family.
Well, actually, no. Legends of the Dark Knight started before that. So if we're counting that, then I've read some of that from like the early 90s.
I've not actually read any of that. I don't think.
Which we will be looping in when the time comes. I mean, it's probably going to be around then when it switches to 2 Batman issues per week.
Because we'll be having more than just 2 Bat books. We need to start chipping away at these.
Plus, when we get to like Nightfall and it's like swapping between like 4 books, like it makes more sense to do 2 a week or 2 an episode instead of one per episode. It would take ages to get through it. We'd actually be going longer than it actually took the event to happen at the time. So yes, but yeah. So Batman 402, I actually really liked. What are you giving it?
I'm gonna give this an 8. This was a really great issue.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll give it a solid 8. I agree with that. That'll take us on to Wonder Woman issue 2. This is the Brian Azzarello writing, of course, Cliff Chiang on the art. This is the second issue of the New 52 series. Continuing on, where Diana's protecting this Zola woman who's pregnant with Zeus's kid. They go to Themyscira to sort of hide out. So again, Wonder Woman's continuity's changed so much. It's one of these things where you have to just if you're reading current Wonder Woman, you're like, hey, so you can just go back to Themyscira? Yeah, she could for a long time.
I mean, up until 2016, that was the status quo.
Yeah. But I think it's fair to assume that a lot of people here who are listening to this might have only jumped in then.
Yeah. I think what I more meant by that statement is that was not a change made for the New 52 that she could go back, and 2016 was a resetting of that. That was the status quo pretty much forever, because there are things in this that are different to what was before and is different to now, of course.
Oh yeah, the fact that all the gods are all the gods are all these young, sort of sexier versions and whatnot.
I mean, is sexier necessarily the right word?
Well,
I wouldn't call Hermes particularly sexy.
Okay, sleeker. They've all got this sort of lanky, sleek kind of look to them.
Yeah, that I'll give you. Yeah, and they're not just. They don't necessarily just look like people. As we're maybe more used to.
To clarify, I was not saying this because I find this sort of look sexy. I was more just going by what like a comic book artist would do to make someone sexy, which is to draw them as skinny as possible. We find out though that Zeus's wife's not too pleased that there's another bastard child. So now, on top of Zeus sending people after the kid, now the wife wants to like make an example of her.
Do you need to know her name?
Yeah, go on.
Hera.
Thank you. I don't remember all these gods' names. You're lucky I remembered Zeus, to be honest, from last issue.
Jesus Christ.
I don't find the mythology of this stuff that interesting. This is legitimately a hurdle that I had to get over when I started reading Wonder Woman, was all this mythology stuff.
On a slight side tangent, I saw that just today, the review on Screams After Midnight that you and Tim did for The Lighthouse went up. Did you talk about the big Greek mythology stuff going on in that, or did you just not even bring it up?
I acknowledged that it existed, but I hadn't know anything about it to actually talk about it.
Okay.
I was aware that it was some people talked about it, but I couldn't offer anything. And to be fair, now I could Tim, so...
No, that's fair enough. There's no point in trying if you don't know anything about it. I just wondered if you kind of acknowledged it at all. No.
Talked a lot about penises, though.
Oh, there's so much phallus in that movie.
I mean, the lighthouse itself is kind of a big dick.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. So that's kind of what we set up. They're at Themyscira, and the security guards are about to attack, and Diana's like, "No, it's me. It's Wonder Woman. It's your homie." And they're all like, "Oh yeah, okay." And Hippolyta shows up.
Yeah.
Hippolyta being a bulky blonde in this New 52 incarnation.
Yeah. Bulky, not surprising, given, warrior Amazon race.
Yeah.
Blonde was different, I think.
Very
I
different.
Her ever been blonde before that.
Well, traditionally, the tactic has been to make her look like Diana, just older, because she's her mother, but...
And in many times, she was out in the world as Wonder Woman before Diana.
We'll get to JSA number 1 later. But this, and Diana ends up fighting a little bit of playful gladiator combat, because why not? But we got a scene with Zola and Hermes where she's kind of asking questions about who Wonder Woman is, what this place is. He's asking about, Zeus takes many forms to seduce people. He's like, so what fantastical form that you couldn't resist did he take?
I'm pretty sure in one of the myths he was a swan. So just kind of put that out there in terms of what we're talking about. Yeah,
and she responds with a truck driver.
Or it could have been this other guy, or maybe that other guy.
Could have been a pool guy, or could have been in a band. But yeah, and then he tells a story. So this is kind of like where there's no new origin story for Diana in New 52, but this is kind of the equivalent of it, where he quickly explains, Diana was born from clay, which is important because the ending of the issue is going to imply otherwise. The end of the issue is going to say no, twist. So,
which is a new origin story.
yes, and we have to establish what it's supposed to be first, otherwise it's not a twist.
I actually appreciate that it does that, because I think it would be very easy to assume that, hey, a big reboot, and we're changing things often for the sake of changing them in the New 52.
Yeah, it's important to establish it just for the sake that Deanna doesn't know this, because that's going to be the sort of thing where we go, oh, this is just what it is, and Deanna doesn't know, that's weird. But it establishes this is it was the clay. It was the clay formation of Wonder Woman. It was, Hippolyta forms her out of clay and gives her life. Well, she doesn't give her life.
She wishes that she had a child, and then she wakes up and the child is there.
Yes. So yeah, it's fun stuff. And then of course, you're gonna have to tell me the name here. What's the Lucy's daughter?
I'm pretty sure that's Aphrodite.
Oh, is it? Is that Aphrodite?
I'm fairly sure it is, because she's talking about love with Hera and her brother Ares. So yeah, I'm 95% sure that's Aphrodite.
Well, she just pops up in Themyscira, and we don't really realize it until after that she grows to I think Rita Repulsa, Make My Monster Grow. She's really really tall. So she kills a few Amazons. Diana confronts her, gets the lasso around her. And the issue ends with her saying, she says, "I'm here for my sister," and Diana's like, "Oh, no, I'm not going to let you come after that, the kid and that Enzola." And she's like, "No, I won't talk about her. I'll talk about you." And that's her.
Yeah.
That's a little twist that she's actually the daughter of Zeus. So no, that's the twist. Obviously, the art's very consistent with the previous issue. Chiang does really, really good stuff. Particularly as a 2-page layout when she's fighting friendly combat with the other Amazon, and she's it's all these quick panels of all these dodging and diving.
Such a great flow to it, doesn't it?
Yeah. Color scheme's pretty strong. You've got the kind of the dawn light, especially towards the end. It's this sort of low orange light of the sky, but the trees and all that are all sort of tinted green and blue.
Yeah, honestly, this is another example of why Matt Wilson is my favorite colorist, because I love the way this book looks because of his colors.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed this well enough. What's so funny is because this is by far the newest book out of all these, it reads the quickest, but there's not even a competition. And maybe that'll change as time goes on, but at least right now it's by far the quickest read of the bunch. But I mean, this basically sets up the new origin of Wonder Woman, presents it as a twist, gives another wrench in the works with Hera and that, and then just sort of reestablishes what Themyscira is like in this new continuity. Not a lot of plot advancement and all really when you look at it, but it's a kind of about establishing things, which is something maybe the first issue kind of was missing a little bit. As the first issue went for more, here's what the plot is, without maybe setting up what the status quo is now. So the second issue kind of comes in and does that a bit more.
It makes it a nice kind of complementary piece to that first one.
Yeah. It's one of those things where we always say how TV shows should always have a double pilot to start with, to give it the time to explain things. I almost wonder, would this have been better to be structured more as one big issue for issue one?
Yeah, I can see that.
No, don't get me wrong. The first issue has its own bookend, so I mean you'd have to kind of reframe it and sort of think about how you do it. But
yeah, but I wouldn't be a huge task to kind of essentially re-edit these into one piece.
Yeah, but I mean, as it is, I mean, there's nothing too much to complain about. So, what are you giving it?
I'm going to give it an 8 as well. I'm actually knocking off half a point there for it having one of my pet peeves of not being clear with characters' names, unless it's supposed to be a twist of who they are. Because, at the start with, I'm going, okay, I know this is Hera because Greek mythology, and yes, it's Greek mythology. Anyone could look this up. She mentioned it at some point later, but it was quite late in the issue before they mentioned her name. It's a pet peeve of mine that it should be on the first page that they're in, unless their identity is a twist that you want to reveal in the next couple of pages.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that is a thing I dislike. So I'm not going to have half a point for that.
That's fair. I am also going to give it an 8. I have nothing to really explain. So just
I don't usually have that much to explain with those, but I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah. So anyway, that'll take us on to the Flash Annual Issue 4. Mark Waid writing with Craig Brasfield on the art. or Brasfield maybe, probably more like how you say that. So this is a kind of a weird annual, and it's a tie-in to a thing, which because this feels really weird on its own. See, when I was reading this, I was like, this is a weird like possible future story. What's going on? Is this ever followed up upon? And I don't think it is in Waid's run. I think this is purely about tying into this Armageddon thing that's going on.
Armageddon 2001.
There you go. It's purely, and which for the record, this book was not written in 2001. This book was about 10 years before that, give or take. So this was the future of 2001.
Yes.
Just for the record. So clearly, a lot of the characters had stories like this where it was like, here's a possible future. So it's really weird reading this because, like, we know Wally ends up with Linda. We know these things. So it's weird for them to say, oh, he ends up with this woman named Bonnie, and they have a kid, and we have this weird witness protection story.
Yeah, it makes it kind of murky. Not that it's necessarily bad, but it's kind of like, why? It makes it hard to care when you know it's all bullshit. Because at the time, while it's probably all bullshit anyway, with like, you know, right now, if we have, this is set 10 years in the future, we kind of go, okay, it's probably bullshit. But there's always the chance of possibly, maybe some writers really liked what that did and kind of incorporate elements of that. Those things do happen. Whereas in this, it's like, yeah, we know exactly what kind of the status quo of the future of this is.
Yeah, because it even sets up this guy from the future who's coming back to try and save the future by altering the past, and he doesn't really factor into it for the rest of the book. It's kind of,
I assume that's part of the event.
Yeah, exactly. But like reading this on its own, it's kind of lackluster. That said, though, I do think it's actually quite well written. There's some moments when, you know, when not Barry, sorry, Freudian slip there. When Wally like puts on the suit again for the first time in the future in 2001. Actually, I think it's really well done. The way he kind of like puts the suit back on, it feels quite exciting. He goes around and goes after all these villains. It really this issue really feels like the Scarlet Speedster returns in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You know, to compare it to Dark Knight Returns, but so yeah, it's like Flash Day, and this woman Bonnie comes to talk to Flash, and he's kind of like, "Oh, hello, you're pretty," in his head. And then that's when we sort of jump forward to 2001, and we find out that he's married this woman. He's got under an alias. He's not called Wally anymore.
No, he's
Was it Mark? What's his Mark?
No, that doesn't sound right.
No?
I mean,
No?
maybe it is, but it doesn't sound familiar to me.
I'm looking for the name. Her name's
Michael.
Michael, there you go.
So Mike, which is what he goes by. So that's what Mark. All right. I mean, close.
Yeah, I was familiar with those. And they've got a kid, and they set up some interesting things here, where the kid has speed powers, right? It's been passed on to him, but has the protective aura that the Flashes have that sort of protect them from the basically how,
which is now known as Speed Force.
Yes.
What didn't exist at the time.
Yeah, so the Speed Force didn't pass on to him. It's weird to think about it like that now that we know it's called the Speed Force, but
yeah,
you know, whatever. Again, this is another reason why this feels like a weird like time capsule of an issue that doesn't really have much, you know, merit. But you know, basically the kid, despite the fact that if he uses his speed it could kill him, he dives to save this kid who's about to be hit by a bus. And you know, Wally speeds off with him to the hospital to get him treated, and it's a whole thing. But there's also this plot where the reason why they're using fake names is because basically, like, someone Wally put away, this Diogenes, he like went after like the family members of both of them, and they've been about this protection for years now, and this guy's finally found them. So he actually, you know, ends up kidnapping the kid from the hospital. He's working with all these villains. He's got this power actually where if he touches you, he actually gets like almost a read of all your memories and hopes and dreams and fears, and he can use that to manipulate basically anyone. So he manipulates Mirror Master at one point.
Yeah, we got a few of the rogues kind of on his list.
Yeah. So this kind of happens. He manipulates Snart. There's a really weird moment towards the end here where Golden Glider like kisses Captain Cold, and I'm like, whoa, what's happening? There's a weird incest plot. But luckily it's explained immediately that this is not Leonard Snart anymore, that she's been like essentially she's been cougering herself around, like getting all these young boyfriends to pretend to be Captain Cold because she wants a partner.
Which still has its whole kind of can of worms to itself.
Yeah, pretend to dress up as my brother. It's weird, yeah.
Yeah,
it's got an odd side to it. But once this is all in play, and all the rogues are in play, and he has to go off and try and find his son. This is why he goes back and gets his costume and suits back up again. And
do you know what bugged me at this point as well? He gets less ginger as the issue goes on. Like if you look at him, in his home at the start, he's still very clearly a red-headed man.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end, it's a very a chestnut deep brown, and I'm like, what happened here? This is erasure over the course of a single issue.
Speed Force, bro. Ain't got to explain shit.
Yeah, explain why you don't exist yet, Speed Force.
Paradox, a villain here that I'm not super familiar with, who can speed up or slow down a pocket of area in terms of time. So basically, so one of the things that he does in this issue later on is that he makes a circle of the floor, the time speed up, so that when Wally runs over it, it just collapses, because it's as far as that part of the floor is concerned, it's been there for hundreds or thousands of years. So it just crumbles when he
describes his classic trick is speeding up one half of someone's body, which sounds kind of terrifying, actually.
Yeah, so bring this guy back. This is actually quite a cool power set, to be honest. I can get into this. So,
do you know what, actually, in the upcoming solicits, was Paradox not a thing?
I don't remember what we talk about in solicits.
The name rings a bell, so maybe I'm just kind of putting that in now. But
yeah, maybe. So while he goes, as he's drying, goes out of the Flash costume, speeds around, deals with Weather Wizard, and because each one has a clue to where the next person is before he can get to his son. And also each one zaps him with this gun, which doesn't seem to do anything at first, but he realizes after each one that it's sapping his speed bit by bit. And the plan of the villain, Diogenes, is he's going to give his son all of Wally's speed. He's got a lab set up. It's all going into a big chamber. All his speed is literally an energy in a container. So really funny. But there's some fun sequences here. Wally on the baseball field with Weather Wizard. They are pretty solid, I think, for the most part. It's not everything's great, but I do think some of the stuff with him in costume looks quite fun.
Yeah, it's solid. The odd face, which is kind of a bit too bulky or something. But overall, it's not bad.
Yeah. Wally swimming in super speed, levitating with tornado arms. Just all these little things as he's running around.
Yeah.
Good fun. So this is good. What's the color quill? What's he called? And Keystone.
I can't remember his name.
Rainbow Raider. That's what I'm trying to think of. Yeah, that's not one that's used that often anymore.
It should be. I think it gives the art a nice pop at that point.
Yeah, it's a very different style because the coloring changes.
Yeah. Speaking of villains, I actually just checked. Paradox is a thing coming up in the solicits. I don't know if it's the same Paradox, but they're talking about Paradox and time travel. So maybe.
Probably. Unfortunately, the Flash right now has been kind of shitty for a while, so I'm not feeling super excited about it. But it's cool. The Paradox is coming back. I'm all for it. So yeah, and eventually Captain Cold and Golden Glider, but not Snart. They're at an airfield, and Wally again has to take care of them. So there's a lot of action scenes here. We're going through really quickly because it's just lots of action. It's lots of Wally running around, and
this is kind of where the issue. I felt myself kind of getting a little bit bored because I was just like, okay, it's one after another. There's nothing breaking up. They got really no context.
Well, it's an almost 60-page annual. It's pretty meaty. It's
it is, but there's a good 10 pages here where I felt like they were just running up the page count of just throwing some action stuff.
Especially since for us an annual's 40 pages. We're used to it being less. So, but like I said, the fun stuff with the floor falling down because Paradox has made the time advance quicker there. I really like some of the inventiveness of some of this. So it's an interesting little precursor to the actual run proper, because when we get to the end of this and you see the cover of the next issue is the start of it's not called Flash Year 1, I don't think. It's Born to Run or whatever, but it's Wally's 6-issue origin story. So it's kind of nice that we're going to be getting that. We're going to have that overlapping with Batman Year 1. Although Batman will be alternate with the detective though, so that won't happen too quickly. But that's what it is. But fun stuff. So at the end of the issue, Wally makes the choice to not take his speed back. He gives it to his son so that he can run safely, implying that maybe one day his son will be the new Flash.
Yeah, because he gives him the ring as well with the costume. So it's that's going to be a thing.
Yeah, and then someone in the hospital knocks over like a tray of food or whatever, and Wally goes to try and grab it, and he's like miles away. He's too slow.
Yeah,
So
and this is part where I like in terms of what still feels true is the legacy aspect of
mm.
Flash. This is Wally's a kid becoming the next Flash, which is a little bit different, but the idea of passing on the mantle still
Yeah, it
holds
feels
true.
like Mark Waid has all the right ideas for what he's going to do with the Flash. He's just not actually come up with what the actual specifics of his story are yet.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so it comes back to present day, and there's like a weird like effect, presumably from this time traveler who kind of stops them from interacting, and Wally's like, oh, that was weird.
Yeah.
And she kind of looks back at him as well. It's kind of a weird moment. I feel like this moment would make a lot more sense if I'd read the actual thing it's tying into.
Probably. And it's at that point, I actually think this is kind of a strange inclusion to the trade. I mean, in
Mm,
terms of completionism of, okay, is Flash by Mark Waid?
yeah.
Sure. But I feel like, whereas in the last issue, there was stuff where I went, oh, I could see maybe this or that popping up in the run. There's very little in this, outside of the core thematic idea that we just mentioned. I don't suspect much of it shows up. I mean, maybe I'll be wrong, but I don't suspect it does.
I think it will. I think it's completion's sake because it's Flash by Mark Waid, and I think people would be annoyed if it wasn't there, just because hey, this angel's just missing to time because it won't get collecting anything else. So unless there's some Armageddon collection at some point.
Well, yeah, they might well. Who knows? But it's a sort of thing where I'd say, hey, if people just wanted to jump into the run, this issue I'd feel is skippable if you wanted to, and I don't think it's not a must read by any stretch. It's okay, it's solid enough, but it's not exciting.
Having read some of this first trade before, I will say that it does get better once we hit the next issue. We hit the main issues.
I would have hoped so, yeah.
So that's cool. But we give it.
I'm gonna give it a 6 because it's okay. It just feels. Maybe this would have felt better at the time, but right now it feels kind of inconsequential and just kind of weird. But there's it's well told enough.
Yeah. Well, I'll go with the 6.5. I think I'll go a little bit higher because I think it's well done. It's just it's in this weird place because of what it is, and it's a little bit too long. So cut it down for that. But that'd be my thing. So that's Flash Annual issue 4. So next time we actually go to a regular issue, so regular length, which is good. So and next what's 2 weeks from now? Is 2 weeks from now in February already?
It should be.
Yeah, so next time we'll have one less book because we're not doing a longer, or we'll have less to talk about because we're doing a shorter Flash issue, but we'll have the first issue of whatever Superman book wins the vote, because the vote ends at the end of the month. So we'll be starting that next episode. So yeah. Anyway, that'll take us on to Showcase 96 issue 3, or at least half of it. That is our Birds of Prey issue for the episode, because the first chunk of Birds of Prey is all these, because I think after this is like a 4-issue mini, and then there's like a one shot, and then we get to the actual ongoing book. Notably though, this is actually not by Chuck Dixon. This is by Jordan B. Gorfinkel as the writer, and then Jennifer Graves as the artist. So as much as this run is thought of as Chuck Dixon's, this one particular one shot isn't. So what's interesting here is this actually came out before the previous issue, and this features Lois Lane as a main character. So I wonder if this was almost like a proof of concept, and they were like, oh, maybe there should be another character that would be here, another lady.
They couldn't figure out quite who it was.
Yeah, so we have this kind of weird issue where Lois Lane's kind of fighting, and I guess my only real complaint about that, honestly, is that they've got like the opening scene here is like it's just kind of this idea that Canary and Lois have run into each other while they're both investigating the same thing. Obviously, Lois is doing it for a story. Black Canary's doing it because Oracle set her on this path, and it does tie into what they said at the end of the previous issue. Kind of, so we said how it would kind of tie in to being set before it. It's like Santa Prisca led them here. Although they're in Metropolis, though, they're at this kind of like workshop, a sweatshop, and my only real complaint is that I feel like obviously Lois is a very strong character. I feel like they go too far here with the really easy option of just making her good at fighting, which feels kind of like
she's just like I grew up on a military base. It's cool. I got this.
Because I feel like they do a good job typically of Lois being a really strong character who never feels weak without resorting to just have her being good at kicking and punching.
I think the thing is, it's not that she's strong, it's that she doesn't give a damn and gets herself into the situations anyway, and often does have to be rescued by someone
Oh
in
yeah,
some way.
yeah. I'm not talking about that though. I'm not talking about that side. I just mean in general. She's a strong character. She's strong-willed. She's
Oh, sure, yeah.
she's a character who you would describe as being, who takes charge and like isn't this weak, feeble character.
Not at all.
But they do that without resorting to, oh, she can kick and punch like the superheroes. Like, like I feel like this is a really lazy way of being like, oh, Lois is always strong. She doesn't have to kick and punch.
She feels on par here with Canary, which should not be the case.
Yes, and in a fighting scenario, Canary should be, doing circles around her. But, it is what it is. So they're fighting all these guards. And the plot of the issue is this is essentially a slave workshop where all these immigrants have been forced to work, and they're fighting back. But the head honcho here, who's in charge of all this, shocks them both because he's got like electrical powers. Although we find out later that it's not really electrical powers; it's more of a psychic power that just sort of looks like electrical powers.
Sure, yeah, why not?
Well, because they do that later because they want the whole scene where all the workers they realize once they can, if they actually are strong-willed enough, they can kind of resist it, so they can all fight back. But we spent a lot of the issue with Lois and Dinah in like a cell, and Oracle's talking to them. Lois is even observant enough to notice that, hey, you're talking to someone with like a secret little comms device. And what's interesting here is that Lois talks about how she's like split up from like her boyfriend, and we see that obviously she's talking about Superman.
Yeah, it's our first look at a super mullet in this show.
Yes. Hopefully, much more to come. Super mullet's
I'm sure there will be.
Super mullet's great, and I think the main thing of this issue is that they're kind of comparing their sort of like romances a little bit, and she brings up Green Arrow, and the Green Arrow, and I didn't even realize this last issue that Green Arrow's dead right now in continuity.
Yeah, this is one of the things where I knew he was dead for X amount of time. I know the return stuff.
Yeah, because he doesn't come back until Blackest Night, right?
I think the Kevin Smith stuff is after he died, isn't it?
Is it? Okay, so he died again?
Maybe.
Or
maybe I'm misremembering.
Maybe he's not one of the characters that comes back in Blackest Night, but because his series afterwards was under the Brightest Day banner. Because I read that series.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure the Kevin Smith stuff is after he's dead. It's when he comes back. It's trying to, because people are like, oh, he's dead, and he's trying to clear his name and kind of reestablish himself. I'm sure that's part of that book.
I wonder how he came back then.
In fact, Joe, I've just remembered some of the plot of that book. That is definitely after he's dead.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Look, there's a lot of weird. Hold on. I need to pause for a second. We've got a Twitter update from Tim that I think God. I have to check. He's been watching The Outsider, and there's a very Tim-related thing in The Outsider this week, and I think he's finally just seen it, and I want to see the response.
He has indeed.
Yes, hold on.
I have seen the tweet.
Let me see. I'll wait, read it. Right. I was near the end of the episode and still didn't know what you were talking about, and then it happens and I'm like, okay, yes, very good. And then there's a gif of a leprechaun opening a door. Leprechaun was mentioned in this week's episode of The Outsider, and Tim, I thought of Tim naturally. So I had to.
He thinks of Tim many a time.
He's got a lot of things that are they're Tim things.
Do you know what they are like? Because you used to say, oh, Tim's thing for pizza was a pretty Tim thing, and now that seems so normal.
Yes, pizza, goats, leprechaun, Hellboy, Castlevania. Those are the Tim things. But anyway, so Dinah's very kind of harsh about this. She kind of says he deserved it when she talks about Oliver dying. The jerk deserved it, and it's like, oh, do you mean that? kind of thing. And at the end of the issue, Lois is like, hey, what you said about Oliver, did you mean that? And she's like, it's clear that she's in a bad place, and her feelings about Oliver dying are kind of mixed, and she doesn't know how to process it. So I feel like it's setting up some character stuff for what maybe she'll go through in the run at some point. But one of the workers in the shop sort of breaks in via one of the bricks, basically. There's like a secret shaft, and lets them out, which lets them get out, and they're like, hey, we're going to save everyone. They fight back. The villain does actually obviously get the upper hand a little bit until Lee, the worker who helped him, is able to kind of rise up and inspire the rest to basically refuse and resist. So Black Canary decks the bad guy, and everyone's free, and we end with the authorities kind of being there, and everyone's kind of happy. And, but anyway, it ends in this really somber moment.
Again.
Yeah, where Dinah's walking away from Lois, thinking about Oliver. So it's a really kind of sad beat.
Yeah.
Yeah, not as good as the last one shot we had. I don't think it's not bad, certainly. And if you look at it this way, keep in mind that this was released before the last issue. Once Chuck Dixon was on the book, he stayed with it. So it's not like he left for this issue. This issue was first, and then Dixon came on and was kind of there from then on. I don't think the art's quite as good as the last issue. I don't think the story's quite as good as the last issue. That said, though, I don't necessarily dislike it. I think some of the stuff with Lois and Dinah kind of sharing is kind of fun, and that's basically it. But it's definitely a lot more kind of fluffy, perhaps, than the previous issue was, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of working out the kinks of what the book's going to be. I think in the long run, like I say, even if this is a different writer, the idea was clearly being floated around the DC offices.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of poking at, okay, well, we need someone else. We need someone else in the field with Dinah. And ultimately, this is, Lois isn't the answer. But it's getting there.
Yeah, we don't get to Huntress for a long time.
Yeah.
At least as a permanent member, anyway. So, no, I enjoyed it well enough. I think it was not quite as tight as that previous one shot. It was a lot shorter, admittedly, so it was a quicker read, but it was just it felt a little bit like I say, just some a little bit more, I don't know, generic 90s comic, I suppose, is how to put it.
Yeah, it's not bad, but it's not particularly great either.
Yeah, what are you giving it?
I'm going to give this a 6 as well, I think.
Yeah, I think a 6 is fair for this one. It's fine, but it's not, particularly notable.
Just before we move on, I did actually do a quick check on Green Arrow.
Okay.
With the death. So he died around issue 100-ish, not too long after the Grell run finishes.
Yeah, I was actually thinking it was the end of the Grell run, so it's actually just after that. Okay.
It seems to be just after that, from a quick scan at Wikipedia.
Right.
And then he is back for the 2000-ish series with Kevin Smith. He's revived, and then it does look like he dies again because he is transformed into a Black Lantern.
Okay, I was right. He was dead again.
He was dead, yeah. So you weren't wrong. We were both kind of right in various points. We just didn't quite have the full picture.
Excellent. All right, well, that'll take us on to JSA issue 1. James Robinson and David Goyer writing with Stephen Sadowski on the art. So this is the Jeff Johns slot, even though Jeff Johns is not involved in this issue yet.
We'll get to Jeff Johns in about 3 months.
Yes. So that's cool. Obviously, last issue we had the death of Wesley Dodds. Everyone found out. This issue is the funeral. Natural progression. Sets out some of the main plot we're going to be dealing with. We start off with the murder of Kid Eternity in a sewer somewhere, where this mysterious villain kills him. Because Kid Eternity conjures all these figures from the past to fight him, because that's what Kid Eternity does.
I'm not super familiar with Kid Eternity, but he always seems like a cool idea.
Yeah, but Kid Eternity gets killed, and we just see this mysterious figure walk off. Now, I mean, we know who this is because we've read this before, but well,
let's pretend we don't.
Admittedly, I'm forgetting his name, but I know who it is. You know what I mean? When they say it again, it'll be fine. But I know who it is. Anyway, and then we have the dream that Sandy Hawkins, because we had at the end of the last issue, he woke up from the dream. Here we actually get to see what the dream was, and we even see that the what's his face is in here from Sandman.
Dream.
Yeah, Dream.
Yeah.
Anyway, but he sees Wesley Dodds, Sandman, because he's in the dream. He's his younger self. He's the psychic age, and Wesley Dodds turns to sand and kind of dies, and that's when he wakes up. Yeah. So,
and I really like how this issue from this point on makes it clear that even if you didn't read the one shot thing that we had before, doesn't matter. This there's more context there, sure, but this tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah, because the previous issue did a good job of introducing everyone, and this issue does it again much quicker. There's like a 2-page layout here at the funeral where Starman and Wildcat are just kind of whispering to each other as Sandy, he's giving the eulogy, right? And so you've got Wildcat and Starman just sort of whispering to each other, talking about their opinions of everyone who's there.
Very disrespectfully, I might add.
And they're kind of just describing who Johnny Thunder is, Hippolyta, this new Stargirl or Star Smile Kid, whoever that is, Everman, Al. Like I think you're better. I mean, I think you should read the first one shot. I think it adds a lot to the introductions. But it does enough to kind of like quickly try and get you in.
This is the cliff notes of, hey, if this is the first thing you've read, if you're jumping, because this is this is an issue 1. You might have just at the time you might have skipped whatever was before you saw an issue 1 and went, hey, I'll try that.
Yeah.
This gives you the cliff notes of everything you need to know to make this work.
Yeah. So because that 2-page layout ends with Alan Scott talking about his kids who are going to be factors in this, of course. Jenny, who he mentions, who was a Green Lantern at one point, and then Todd, and Todd's got a lot of stuff coming up, and we actually see Todd. There's a little sidebar with Todd in a restaurant talking to someone, very very intensely. But then when the waitress comes, there's actually no one there. So
which again is really nice, where you know where it's going. I think this is something that was obviously very clearly planned, because the way the shadows fall on the booth makes it really work.
Mm-hmm.
So I like this.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. So yeah, just a little tease with him there, and then there's a moment where Jay Garrick thinks he sees the ghost of who is it he sees again?
Kent Nelson.
Dr. Fate. Because obviously a lot of this stuff's going to be very Fate related. Because then the funeral's interrupted. With a dying Fate to a Dr. Fate related character. I mean, this is one of these things where this character shows up. I have no idea who this is.
Yeah, this is after Nelson's death, after the helmet's kind of gone at the moment.
Yes.
You have these other artifacts of Fate instead.
Yeah. So basically, he's the second victim of whoever killed Kid Eternity at the start. As someone killing us, you have to deal with this, and he's dying. He's got a knife in his back, and he collapses over. And it's right around then that a lot of the corpses in this graveyard all come to life with like Anubis style, like Egyptian armor, and they're like, "Hey, we are the what was
Sons of Anubis."
Sons of Anubis. There you go. And like so we have this fight where the older. The Starman's dad, and he grabs Courtney and drags her off because you're too young for this. We have to run. And there's a fun little beat there actually where I'm in charge of looking after you. So I'm not gonna let you do this. And there's actually some really like specific dialogue where she wants a Backstreet Boys CD and someone calls her don't go all Sporty Spice, and I'm like, okay, this is clearly the end of the 90s. All these references.
If you couldn't tell.
Yeah. And then you have Al kind of debuting his Atom Smasher in front of everyone. He puts on his outfit. So we have everyone kind of fighting.
Yeah.
But Stargirl does actually blast one of the Sons of Anubis sneaks up behind him and says, "Hey, have you buy me that Backstreet Boy CD? And I won't tell Pat how your supervising went." So there's some fun stuff in the action here, and because there's a lot of characters here that aren't going to be here for the main run. There's a lot of these characters who actually disappear after the first story.
I mean, a handful of them still pop in and out over the course of 100 odd whatever issues it is. Probably more than that.
So they have this fight, and they're trying to get to the knife, but Alan Scott blasts some of the ring.
I think the fight looks pretty good overall. It's nice because there's a lot of versatility going on with all the different things happening.
Yeah, I mean it's sort of to look at it critically and say, well, what is this as an issue 1? Well, it quickly tries to establish very briefly who everyone is, and then gives you a fight scene, because every issue 1 has to have a big fight scene where everyone shows off their powers. Like, we have to have them all in costume by the end of the issue so we can all see it. So
I actually think it does a pretty good job of that, in the sense of, okay, Green Lantern's got his beams, you've got the cosmic staff, Owlman ages things, you've got Atom Smasher growing, Canary doing a kicking, Flash speeding around, Wildcat is doing his normal thing. I think it does a really good job of showcasing everyone's actual power set in mostly just 1 or 2 panels each.
And what's possible, this is actually more about Birds of Prey, but it'll be relevant here too. Canary does not have her powers right now. She has no Canary's cry.
Yes.
That was brought up in the Birds of Prey issue. So that's something to bring up. So the issue ends with Scarab showing up, who looks like a weird version of Firestorm. If I was to describe how he looks,
That's actually a pretty good description. I think it's the harness. It's kind of the word I want to use.
yeah, he's got the circle with the sort of the beams coming out of it. It's kind of like the Firestorm's chest kind of plate thing.
Yeah,
but he's got like obviously more of a different look to him than that. It's different colors. It's bulkier. He's got this kind of
blades on his legs because it's the 90s.
Yeah, he's got this weird mask. Yeah, but he's like, yeah, so you might know me as Scarab. And Fate, brought together. We have to reform the first and greatest heroes. The JSA needs to be reformed to stop this threat. Because as we know from the first issue, or for the one shot, is that whoever this villain is, they're after, the Fate child, the child that will become Fate. So, that kind of sets things up. But again, you might not actually know that if you hadn't read that issue. So for issue 1, it doesn't necessarily get to those details yet. It's just, no, there's a threat. I'm here. You have to reform.
Yeah, and there are things that kind of makes it work in retrospect if you hadn't read that other issue. His line here, "Fate has brought you together."
Yeah.
It works, and you can read that just in the sense of, well, we saw Kent Nelson, and Fate was the guy who showed up dead at the funeral. But it works in a larger sense as well.
Yeah, I think it's a solid first issue. Obviously, there's this weird thing with this first arc where it's not the John stuff yet, and the John stuff gets really, really good. So it's right now it's just it's solid. It's solid, introducing everyone. I like these characters. I like the sense of legacy here. Where we have these two generations makes it so unique compared to other superhero books and other superhero teams.
Yeah, I think actually, as a compliment to this as a first issue, it shows a lot of restraint because we say, oh, it does all these things, introduces the team, it's got the big fight scene, but it says at the end, next issue, we introduce Hawk Girl.
Yeah, it didn't do.
Obviously, she was in the previous one shot, but that's not here. It didn't feel the need to cram it in.
Yeah, it didn't do everything it could have done. It had some restraint. I think it kept it at a relatively small scale as well. It's at a funeral, then some bad guys show up and they fight. Other than the one little sidebar to Todd, Allan's son, it was in the dream at the start. It was mostly just this one kind of idea, and I think that's to its benefit. I think keeping it simple helps it out because there's so many characters to try and get your head around. And I don't think for a second, if you've never read JSA before, that you would take all this details in. You would take some of it in. It takes some reiteration over some issues
Absolutely.
to learn them all.
That goes for any kind of new team that you're not familiar with, any new set of characters. So, but I think this was a good job of, I mentioned in Wonder Woman my pet peeve of not introducing characters properly. This does it very thoroughly, even if it is briefly.
But that's why I'm saying keeping the actual premise of the issue simple is a good idea, because there's so many characters that there's enough complex stuff there in that side of things. Don't make it more.
Don't double up on the confusion.
Yeah. So really solid, and I'm excited to be reading this again, and eventually get further than I read when I read it the first time. Which
I've been on record on our main show for a long time saying this is possibly my favorite run of all time. So I'm excited to reread it. It's been years.
So I read about 50 issues of it or something like that. But
you still in the first volume then?
Yeah, because the first volume was way longer than that. First volume. But that is it. So what are you giving it? What are you giving JSA issue 1?
I'm gonna give this a 7.5 for doing all the things it does very well. It just doesn't quite excel.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I have so much excitement from this because I know where it becomes that I feel more positive about it, despite the fact that maybe on its own merits I shouldn't give it this. But
that's why I was kind of like, no, I'm judging it on as a first issue. How does it perform?
Yeah, I'll give it the 8. I'm intrigued. Admittedly, I think bizarrely, because I've read a good chunk of this before, enough to be familiar with these characters, I think it worked much better for me this time than it did the first time I read this issue. Back when.
Possibly. This actually has a kind of reverse thing as to what we were talking about with the Flash annual, where that suffered because we knew the future, so to speak. Whereas this, because we know a lot of these characters from future reading and where this kind of goes in broad strokes, I think at least to a point with you, it helps. It kind of feels like
I think
refresher.
in any good run, that's the case. It's the Flash is just in this case was different because it was this weird one shot of a possible future. I'm pretty sure when we actually get to Mark Waid's run proper, that a lot of that stuff will benefit if you've read it already and you can.
Oh, almost certainly. Which, for the record, I haven't. I think I've read Born to Run at some point because I know I've got the trade behind me, but I've not really read much of that run. So I'm actually excited to dive into that with fresh eyes. Obviously, I know the broad strokes.
And they just solicited Flash by Mark Waid book 7, so I mean it's a big lengthy run. We're going to be on that for a while. So good stuff. And it is worth mentioning, in between 6 and 7 there's a little short Grant Morrison run that we'll probably just do there, in between where it slots in. Sure. It's just one book. It's like one 12 issue book, but it does slot in between 2 of the Mark Waid books.
Yeah, I have that book on Comixology, but I never read it, so I was like, I'll get to it once I do the Mark Waid stuff, but I never got around to starting.
I guess Mark Waid took a year off for whatever reason before it came back, but yeah, so Grant Morrison had
I guess it happens.
So yeah, but there you go. That is episode 2. Favorite of the week. Do you know? I actually am going to go with Batman 402 for me. I think
I was going to say the same.
It surprised me the most. I think everything else I got what I expected. Now, admittedly, I've read all the other ones before, so I guess that should be true.
Well, that's the thing. I haven't read all this. I've obviously read Wonder Woman and JSA before. As I just mentioned, I had not read Flash. I've not really read much Birds of Prey, and hadn't read the Batman. So I'm more in uncharted territory than familiar here. But Batman definitely surprised me the most, and I think it felt like such a step up after the detective issue, which is I think the key difference. Whereas the others felt okay, it's what I expected based on previous, the last episode.
Yeah, it's nice that Batman Detective feel different though. Like it'll be nice to have that alternating kind of style.
Yeah, that's something I'm always a fan of. I've long talked about. I love when they're on different teams, different styles entirely. Like Batman, detectives should probably focus more on the detective side of things, or when we were early in Rebirth, having Tynan do his team book on detective, that was a really solid way of differentiating them. So I'd like to see us get back to that in the near future.
But yeah, there you go. So that is episode 2 of Previously in the Multiverse. You can let us know what you thought of these books in the comments below. You can like and subscribe, all that stuff. Like I said earlier, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, $5 and up patrons starting basically now. The vote will be up and the deadline will be the end of the month to vote on which of the 4 Superman books, which are all relatively short runs, will be the 6th slot, and then once that's done we'll have another vote for the replacement book. As long as we can keep thinking of shorter runs, eventually it may be a longer run and it'll just be a longer wait between votes. However, I think there's an idea of doing a couple of runs on elsewhere in the style of this show, one of which will be voted for. So if that's the case, then there'll be a non-DC vote as well for that one. So there'll be
And just because this vote is all Superman, because we wanted some Superman representation around the start of this show. Once that book is done, whatever it may be, it probably won't be Superman for the next vote. It'll be something else. We have no idea what yet, but it'll be something else entirely.
Yeah. So there you go. But also Patreon, I should thank our Patreon producers for the month. That means that the patrons at $20 and up, although you can support us for as $1 per month and just get some bonuses for that. But voting stuff tends to come at the $5 tier and so on and so on. But the Patreon producers, which I will now thank, David Short, Alison M. Fordyce, Cindy Palacios, and Tyler Hess. Thank you to you guys for being producers for the month of January. But that is us. So worth mentioning as well, $5 also gets you 1 day early access to this show, the main show, Comics from the Multiverse, and when it launches elsewhere in the Multiverse. So go and have a look and see if you're interested in doing all that stuff. You can also support us, of course, by rating the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars. Helps us out a lot because they'll promote it out and put it on their rankings and things like that and recommend it. So go and have a look at that and to just share us on social media or whatever else. But that has been us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics. And I don't have an outro for this show yet.
Got to think of something during the show.
Nothing, because I was hoping that there would be something in one of the issues that was like, okay, I'm going to take that and that'll just be the outro now. I'll take it from that issue because there's that one line of dialogue or that one moment that speaks to me and says that's what it's going to be. But nothing's really struck with me yet. So I will simply say that we are currently lost in the speed for I don't know, like the outro line. Cut.